Hi, welcome to SAE and welcome to Animation Studies and Practice. My name is Katie and I'm one of the lecturers that teaches on Animation Studies and Practice. Also, I will be taking you through the before class online content, which will be a series of videos such as this, and there will also be associated activities to complete before you get to class. However, because it's week 1, we're just going to focus on, in today's video, on an introduction to the unit and what to expect for the rest of the trimester. So let's get started. Each week of ANM110 follows a specific structure, which is pretty much the same for all units. Each week is divided into 3 sections: before class, in class, and after class. For ANM110, which is the code name for Animation Studies and Practice, the before class content is where we will look at theoretical content, exercises such as reviewing readings, and we will also dedicate time to discussing each of the projects of the unit. Your before class content is delivered online and should take you around 4 hours a week to complete. As the name suggests, this content needs to be completed before you attend class. Once you have completed the before class content, you're ready to head to campus for class. Your classes are 2 hours. The focus of class is to help you work through your projects and may also require you to present some of your work from the before class session. The after class content is dedicated to project work only. The after class work should take you about 3 hours to complete. In total, you will spend around 6 to 9 hours on this unit each week. These videos are designed to help you navigate the content and will be no longer than 10 minutes each. Okay, so in this video, we will cover an introduction to ANM110. What is this unit and what can you expect? We're going to look at the ANM110 projects, of which there are 3. We're going to have a look at Campus Online and where you can find content. We're also going to quickly look at how to get started on Slack, which is our method at SAE that we use for communicating with your facilitators and with peers. And we'll also have a quick look at what to expect for the rest of this week. So what you'll do in class and also the after class content. So what is Animation Studies and Practice? So this unit is the first theoretical unit in your animation course. Its focus is to provide you with skills that will support the more academic side of your studies. So these are skills such as how to research effectively, reference your information correctly, put together presentations, and confidently write academic essays. The first thing we're going to take a look at, now that we've done a bit of an introduction into this unit, is to have a look at Campus Online. Campus Online is the method that we deliver your content for most units. For ANM110, or Animation Studies and Practice, all the content for the unit can be found on Campus Online. So to get to that content, we're currently in Campus Online now. So when you sign in, you'll probably see a page, something a bit like this. So you'll have a bunch of your units here at the front page, and you will want to navigate to Animation Studies and Practice. So if we click on that, we can then go into the unit. Okay, so this is what we see when we first jump into Animation Studies and Practice. I'm just going to change my role so that I will see what you see, which as a student. So I'll just do that quickly. Okay, there we go. So what we see on screen should be exactly what you see when you jump into the content. Okay. So when you go into Animation Studies and Practice, it will take you to the Getting Started tab, as you can see here. So these tabs along the top here allow you to access different elements of the ANM 110 content. So getting started just takes you through a few steps to help get you orientated to the animation studies and practice unit. However, the bulk of the content is in weekly content. So if we click on that, we can see that there are a number of subheadings, and each of those numbers refers to the week that you will complete that content. So at the moment, you have available weeks 1 to 11, and 12 and 13 will be available soon. So if we click on week 1, Intro to an APA Referencing, you'll be able to see the content that you'll be covering this week. Okay, and as we said before, that covers 3 different sections: before class, during class, and after class. Okay, so that's how we are going to locate our content, or our weekly content, for the unit. Okay, so now that we have had a look at the weekly content and the Getting Started tabs, let's just talk quickly about the rest of the features that we can see in Campus Online to kind of get you orientated. So you'll notice that there's a couple of tabs left here. There's a tab for each of your projects. So if we click on that, the main thing to know with these tabs is this is where you will eventually submit your project work. So when you're ready to submit your project, your animation timeline, which is project 1, you want to click on that tab and scroll down until you get to this button here, Project 1 Animation Timeline. Your facilitator will show you what you need to do to submit, but just a heads up that this is where you will do it. So not only does Campus Online provide you with all the content as far as ANM 110 is concerned, but it's also where you'll submit your projects. So just keep that in mind. So there's a tab, as I said, for each of your projects, Project 2 and Project 3. And they all serve pretty much the same function, which is to give you a way to submit your project. Each tab does include a couple of other things, which is worth checking out, such as examples, and also just list checkpoints that you want to meet during each project. But we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail later. Okay, so they are your tabs. Probably one of the most important things that you'll want to be aware of with all of your units, and this will be the same throughout all units that you have at SAE, is your unit guide. So your unit guide is essentially a contract between yourself and your facilitator, or rather yourself and SAE, which will talk you through what projects you will do and what learning outcomes you will complete by the end of the course. So the unit guide is a really important place to start with ANM 110. And to access it, we just click on that link. And it will load. So it will open up in a separate tab. And here we go. So we've got here the unit guide for ANM 110. And there's quite a few different sections to it. You can see here. So once we click on it, we sort of have the main content here. And then on the left, we have sort of this navigational bar. Probably the main sections that you'll want to be aware of is your learning outcomes. So these are the elements that you will hopefully achieve by the end of the trimester. But maybe even more important than that, you can also, through this document, navigate to your project briefs. Now, your facilitator will spend plenty of time in class talking through the projects and what to do, and there'll also be videos that will talk you through this process as well of completing your projects. But just while we're looking at the unit guide, please be aware that if you have any questions about the project, or any project that you do in ANM 110, your first port of call should always be to have a look at the project brief in the unit guide. So we can see here, we've got the visual timeline. If we click on project 2, that will take us to the next project brief, and then, of course, project 3. So probably just something to note is the due dates for your projects. So the first project is due in week 4. Project 2 is due in week 8. And project 3 is due in week 12. So let's just jump back to project 1 now briefly, and this will sort of be the last thing we have a look at with regards to the unit guide. But I would encourage you to spend some time this week with each of the unit guides, with each of your units, just so you feel totally across what it is you are expected to do in this trimester. So let's jump back to project 1. So project 1 is the visual timeline. Each of these briefs is broken up into sort of different sections. There's a bit of an overview at the start. There's the project goals, so essentially what you're going to be delivering. And then it'll talk you through some steps to follow. So if you follow these steps, then you will complete the project. Just going quickly now to the other sections. So you've got your list of deliverables, so everything you need to complete for the project. And then this very last section here is also really important. So it's called how your project will be graded. This is important to review because it tells you exactly what your facilitators will be looking for when they come to mark your project. So please be aware of that. I know it looks like just a big ugly table, but I think the thing to keep in mind is, this is essentially kind of like a checklist that we use to ensure that you've done the baseline amount for the project, so the minimum amount. So we will be reviewing these things when we come to mark your project. So just so we don't get too overwhelmed, that's probably everything that we will have a look at with regards to the unit guide. We will, of course, throughout the trimester, come back many times to the unit guide and refer to it, particularly when we're starting each brief. So that's it for the unit guide for now. Okay. So now we've taken a quick look at the unit guide, let's just take a bit of time out to have a look at the projects you were completing as part of ANM 110. So the first project, as I've discussed, is a visual timeline, or it might also be referred to as a historical timeline. So the focus of this is to get you to look at some kind of segment of animation history, and that segment will be up to you to choose. This is a group project, project 1. So that's why it's really important to attend class in week 1 so that you can be put into a group. So as we said, it's due in week 4. Now, just please be aware that as with a lot of the projects in ANM 110, there is sort of a corresponding tab, which we looked at. And just something to keep in mind with these projects is there will very often be examples that you can check out. So you can have a look at the kind of thing you'll be expected to do. So let's have a look at the first example just to orientate ourselves and get an idea of what you'll need to complete for project 1. So I'm just clicking on example 1. And that has taken me to this. So a student has created a timeline of the history of animation, looking at really early animation, so finishing up about 1920. So this is a really early era of animation, where animation was more of a novelty, and the the technology behind creating or making moving images was really early, or in its infancy. Okay, but you can see here that this is what the student has created. So they've created so many hundred words and that word count has been divided into a couple of different sections, looking at different phases of sort of technology, practitioners, and also styles of animation in this era. Okay, so you can see it looks pretty much like a timeline, as you would expect. There's references at the end there. Yeah, so they've looked at a variety of points between the year 1900 and the year 1920. So that's what you've got there as a bit of an example. I'm just going to hit back so we can go back to Campus Online. So please feel free to check out the rest of the examples there. The other thing to note is under resources, there's a couple of things available. So you've got a project template, which you can use. So if we click on that, that will take us to this page here, and we can just go make a copy. So Google Docs, which is what we're using to create this project, is asking us, do you want to make a copy of the ANM110 Project 1? And we'll go, yes, make a copy. And this will create a copy of that template. So any edits you make to this is just to your own copy and not to the original. So that hopefully is just something helpful to keep in mind. So this is what that looks like. And your facilitator will talk through the different sections of that. But please be aware that that is there for you to use, and hopefully a bit of a starting point as to what you need to include. So we'll just jump back again to Campus Online. Also for Project 1, there's a bunch of resources that are listed under a couple of different themes. So these are videos, books, and articles on different historical themes. So there's a history of 2D animation, history of stop motion, etc. Again, take some time to have a look at what's included there. Again, we've got that submission button at the end. Okay, so that's Project 1. So each of the projects in ANM110 are designed to build on each other. We won't spend too much time talking about Project 2 or 3, but again, I just want to highlight a couple of things. So with Project 1, the goal is to really get you to be practicing your research skills. So finding appropriate sources and taking information from that, summarizing it and putting it into the format of an animation timeline. Project 2, the creative analysis, this is where you will choose a piece of animated work to deconstruct. You will, of course, research that piece of work, and then you'll talk about it from a number of different perspectives. So you might talk about the character design, or you might talk about the genre that the animation belongs to. There's a number of different facets you can talk about, and those are listed in the brief. So what the creative analysis does is sort of build on your research skills by not only getting you to research something, but also then kind of deconstructing that and analyzing it. The last project, and just before we move on to that, be aware that that also has a template you can use for that project. So if we then go to the Project 3 tab, this is our last project. So this is the argument and proposition. So what you're going to be asked to do here is to come up with a thesis point that you are then going to argue in the format of a presentation and an academic essay. So how this then builds on the previous two projects. So obviously you'll start with your research. You'll then need to analyze that research and your chosen project. So like with Project 2, the creative analysis, Project 3 again asks you to choose a piece of animated work. So you'll analyze that. So you'll need to research it, analyze it, and then come up with some kind of argument or opinion that you are then going to prove as part of your discussion in Project 3. Okay, so each of these projects kind of build on one another in terms of their skills. So Project 1 is about research, Project 2 is about analysis, Project 3 is then about writing an argument. So they're designed to kind of level you up in that way. All right, So just to finish up this first video, let's talk through what you need to complete in terms of the rest of the before class content. Okay, so I'm back in Campus Online and I'm back in the weekly content, and I've clicked on number 1, intro and APA referencing. So if we scroll down past the introduction, we'll get to the before class activities. So there's a couple of things there to do before you get to class. The first one is to have a look at this video. So this video is a really nice overview of the evolution of animation, and this also has an accompanying activity. So once you watch this video, so it says here it's a showcase of the development of animation from 1800 to 2017. And so once you've watched that, you can then move on and answer some of these questions. So you'll want to complete these questions, which are compare the earliest examples of animation at the start of the video to where animation is now. How has the industry changed? Okay, so quite a big question, but just consider a couple of ways. What are some things or some observations you've made in the way animation has changed? So just an introductory question there. You don't have to go into too much detail. Number 2, what are some of your favorite animated works seen in the video? So that's question 2. The last question is where we're keen to hear some input from you. So what are some of the other notable animated films, series, or shorts that could also be included, and why? Okay, so if there was something that you noticed wasn't included in the video, but you think is actually really important to the history of animation, write that down, because we want to hear about it. So what we're then going to do is this activity that will be referred to in class. So it'll be a way just to, I guess, get started in the unit, or just be used as a bit of a discussion point. So you'll want to complete these questions and bring your notes to class. Okay, so once you've done that, the next thing to do is, if you haven't already, read over the unit guide. The associated activity with this is to read the guide and just make any notes of any questions you have and bring these questions to class. Okay, so part of the session will be dedicated to just talking through some of the minutiae of the unit. Okay, and that's it for the before class content. So we'll see you next week.